Chapter 13. Pat was barely out of sight of the rooming house in Sundance on his way to catch the Avalanche stage when Ezra rose and began to dress with an energy that was unusual for him at this hour of the morning. Sam grinned at him. "Hungry, huh?" he inquired. Ezra paused to glare at him. He started to spit and thought better of it, finished dressing in his usual vile before breakfast temper. "You heard, Pat. If you need telling, you're stupid," he growled. "We got the little lady to take care of. I don't know about you, but I'm seeing to it pronto." Sam shrugged loftily. "You get your worrying done while I get breakfast," he returned with calculated satire. He snorted. "I come running right down here from the early stage after an all-night ride, and what do I get for it? A flock of smart cracks from y'all." Ezra had no pity on him, enlarging scornfully on his deplorable condition. They were still chewing the fat with sly relish as they left the house. Inquiry at the stage station elicited the information that the Avalanche stage was gone, with Stevens presumably aboard. It was still early, however, and the partners grabbed a meal before venturing to Della's boarding house in search for her. Arriving before the place, they halted, undecided. "You reckon she's up yet?" hazarded Ezra dubiously. Sam favored him with a stinging regard. "So now I'm an expert of young girls, am I? Ain't no limit to what you expect of me, is there? Of course she's awake. She's probably been up for hours." "I say she probably ain't," retorted Ezra with instant. "Okay, I say that she is, and you say that she ain't. Where's that leave us?" Ezra ignored his words and stared over the little man's shoulder fixed. "Don't turn around," he muttered in a sudden warning. "Just start walking there, and make it casual." What's that?" uttered Sam protestingly as his lanky companion shouldered him into motion. "What is it, Ezra?" "Come on, get!" Ezra rapped out fiercely, giving him the elbow. They started up the street, much to Sam's mystification. It was a minute or two before his partner would vouchsafe an explanation. "It was Denton," Ezra murmured finally. "I spotted him heading for the boarding house." Sam halted and bristled. "Well, shucks, Ezra, that's exactly the kind of mood that we're supposed to be heading off." "No, just wait." Ezra was firm. Venturing a look behind, he ascertained the cattle buyer had apparently failed to spot them. Denton was briskly mounting the boarding house steps like a man without overmuch on his mind. They watched him enter the place, and Sam turned to his one-eyed friend then reproachfully. "Well, now you done it," he accosted him. "You let him get at her without even so much as left in the hand." "Wait," Ezra repeated sternly. Sundance was surging into activity again. They were shouldered this way and that, then till they decided to step off the sidewalk to wait. At length, rather to Sam's surprise, Ches Denton emerged once more from the boarding house and ran down the boarding steps and strode off, his manner disgruntled. "What's that mean?" Ezra growled. "Well, to me it means Dell's either still abed or already gone. Denton certainly wasn't inside long enough to have words with her." Making sure only that Denton was gone from sight, Ezra started back towards the place purposefully. Sam followed him up the steps and into the office. A whiskered old gentleman in shirt sleeves and suspenders stuck his head round the edge of the inside door. "How can I help you?" he called inquiringly. "What time did Miss Follonsbees and the boy leave?" demanded Ezra without ceremony. "Oh, they pulled out on the Avalanche stage about 7 o'clock sharp." The old fellow stared at them curiously. "Another gent was in here just a minute ago asking that very same question.
Danged it, though, if he didn't look more her style than you two do."
"Well, she's gone now. You can stop worrying," retorted Ezra irritably. They left before more could be said. Outside, their glances met. "Just like that Stevens, ain't it?" Ezra groused with disgust. "So she left on the Avalanche stage, and probably Pat's riding inside with her right now, and here we are out here in the cold."
"So what?"
returned Sam practically.
"You couldn't expect him to run all the way back here and tell us. Knowing we'd find out, he likely expects us to turn up an Avalanche before long."
"He'll be lucky if he don't find us waiting when he gets there," grumbled Ezra. "Come on, Squirt, we're moving." Procuring their horses, on second thought they claimed Pat's as well, and leading the horse, they set out at once. Ezra's airy prediction that they would arrive in Avalanche before the stage, however, proved a gross exaggeration. It was a long ride, and dusk found them just entering the lifting mountains. Warned by a bearded freighter that they passed of the distance that remained before them, they hauled up and made camp before darkness prevented the selection of a suitable site.
"Seems as if Denton was a gosh awful anxious to reach Dell after his running with Pat," observed Sam over their supper. "You reckon he's heading for Avalanche too?"
"I don't know." Ezra was thoughtful. "We best keep watch. But Pat's dumber'n I think if he needs another warning."
"Well, he set us to watching dogging, for that matter," Sam reminded Ezra dryly. "From here on, Denton's our care."
They had scarcely rolled into their blankets, having allowed the fire to die out, when the clatter of a running horse came to their ears from the stage road 100 yards away. It swelled to a sharp tattoo, and then dwindled past, and then was gone. Sam sat up in his blankets, alert in a twinkling.
"Well, who in the heck was that now?"
he called softly. There was no way of knowing. Darkness effectively concealed the horseman from sight, but Ezra knew what was going on in his partner's mind. "Denton come to Sundance in a rig," he pointed out.
"Sure, and that means just exactly nothing," spat out Sloane scornfully.
"Well, you do have a point there," Ezra admitted, but he could never be got to leave a subject alone where there was room for an argument. Their very uncertainty was vastly tantalizing, refusing to let them rest. 3 o'clock in the morning found Ezra towing his squat companion awake. He was far from gentle about it. "Let's go, Peanut," he grunted. "We'll cut down Denton's lead if necessary before he gets up." 20 minutes later found them in the saddle, and not long before dawn they rode into the brawling Avalanche, a matter of half an hour after Pat and Roy Spain had pulled out on the big Medicine Trail. Jogging into the main street, Ezra looked this busy town over in some perplexity. Obviously, it had grown up to a different pattern from the familiar cow towns where a man knew how to locate the post office, the general store, or the hotel after a brief glance around. "Hell!" the big redhead exclaimed disgustedly. "Must be 5 hotels in this burg. How are we going to locate Dell in such a gopher town?"
"Well, we might let Denton take lead for us," suggested Sam. "If he can't locate her, we got nothing serious to worry about."
"Well, nothing except locating him first," Ezra snarled. Sam shrugged, resignated.
"Well, I'm hungry and I'm going to eat. I'll do my worrying in comfort anyway."
"Eat? Eat?" Ezra roared. "Don't you ever think of nothing but eating? Some day, I swear, I'm going to cut your throat just to see where the rest of you takes it."
"Well, let's go eat first, then," Sam ribbed, smiling.
Ezra threw up his hands. After leaving Pat's bronc at the stable, they racked their own and stepped into a hash house where their hearty appetites were speedily appeased. "You reckon
We're supposed to recognize Pat if we run into him? Queried Ezra, his coffee cup pausing halfway to his lips. Well, we ain't yet, was the preoccupied reply. Well, he come up on the stage. We'll amble over to the station and gawk around some. Maybe we can get a flash of Stephen somewhere. However, it wasn't Pat who they ran into, but Chest Denton himself, as they headed for the stage station a few minutes later. Sam saw the cattle buyer coming briskly up the street towards him, and he hesitated in dismay, hoping to avoid a meeting, yet fearing it was inevitable. But Denton's mind was fastened so firmly on what he was doing that he never had so much as a glance in their direction. To Sam's surprise, the man turned in instead to the door of the bakery. Ezra sighed gustily with relief. That was a close one, he muttered. We better get across the street and hang out in some doorway before he comes out. They beat a retreat to a safer point of observation and waited. Not immediately did Denton reappear, and as the minutes stretched out, the pair began to grow uneasy. That's taking longer than it takes to buy a bag of buns, exclaimed Sam. I'm going over there to take a peek in the winder. Yeah, and run smack dab into him coming out, retorted Ezra. Suspense forced them into action at last. Moving slowly across, they edged forward for a quick look in through the bakery window, and to their consternation, no one at all appeared to be in the shop. Why, that oily slob, exclaimed Sam. He spotted us after all and sneaked out through the back. Wait now. Getting a firm grip on himself, Ezra stood rock-like. We seen him, Sam, and I ain't doing no more guessing. We'll just barge in there and ask our questions. Sam was close at his heels as they pushed in at the door. A little bell tinkled distinctly, but for a moment nothing happened. The door leading into the rear of the building was closed, and beyond it they could hear a faint rumbling masculine voice, not otherwise distinguishable. The door twitched open, and an elderly woman came in, a look of fussy severity about her. Two more piratical-looking customers than Sam and Ezra would have been hard to find, and her conversational smile froze slowly into a stiffness. What'll it be? She sniffed across the cake-filled glass counter, as if more than half expecting to deal with a couple of panhandlers. Through the door, which she had left ajar at her entrance, they had already caught sight of Chest Denton's impervious and browbeat accents, and a second later, the rather strenuous expulsions of a girl. That Denton come in here a minute ago, and he's in there now. Ezra threw at the girl. Is that Dell Follonsbees he's yelling at? He and Sam started forward as he spoke, round on the counter. Miss Bard would have protested, striving to block their way to the narrow passage. Ezra calmly lifted her by the arms and set her aside, smiling wolfishly. Easy does it, ma'am. He thus quickly shifted her horrified screech. We're friends of Dell's. I can't say as much for that hombre with her. Before the indicted woman could catch her breath, the partners had shoved through the inner door, trampling on each other's feet in their haste. They found themselves in a shadowy hall, but several doors opened out from it, and at one of those they paused to peer into a tiny back parlor. Della and Chest Denton was there. Both were on their feet, and the iron-faced cattle buyer had the girl backed against the arm of an easy chair as she edged away from him. Sensing some hostile presence, Denton broke off what he was going to say to glare sideways. Well, Denton, Ezra thrust close, restraining his anger with difficulty. Entertaining the women, are you? His glare was as good as Denton's own, nor did it waver in the slightest. Della was the one who greeted their opportune arrival with unfeigned relief. Ezra and Sam, she exclaimed in amazement. How in the world? You two? Denton was equally nonplussed, but by the expression of visible effort he recovered his poise promptly. Well, now that you paid your respects, perhaps you better leave? Sam started to chuckle. His laugh swelled to a volume with scornful intent that could not be misread, and Chess flushed under it angrily. Not a chance, Denton. The clipped words were final. It'll be you that's leaving. Denton's mask of reserve dropped from him abruptly. So that's the tone you old fools are taking with me, is it? Maybe, he shrugged with thin significance. The local sheriff might be interested to know that you was you with the long legs that happens to be a wanted man. Ezra did not intend there to be any mistake about the stand he was taking. He crowded forward until he was able to insinuate himself forcibly between Denton and the girl. Try it, and I'll make you harder to find than Hunter is right now, he rumbled. He turned bluffly to Della. Is this bum bothering you, ma'am? In view of the fact that I'm scarcely acquainted with him, I think he's at least making an assumption of an unwarranted liberty, replied Della without hesitation. As far as I'm concerned, the conversation can end at once. You hear that, Denton? Ezra's manner grew menacing. That's more'n enough. Out you go. Denton changed tact with suave determination. Well, this is Miss Follonsbees' own interest, Ezra. I made her a proposal, and I'm waiting for an answer. The partners glanced involuntarily at Della. Mr. Denton comes from Vern Hunter, he says, she explained quickly. I'm to go with him to meet Mr. Hunter. I've told him I don't wish to do that, but he's refusing the only answer I could give. A growl entered into Ezra's throat. Aim to drag you off somewheres without telling you where, huh? Well, I'm perfectly willing to tell her where, thrust in Denton swiftly. Well, how about telling Sam and me? Chess stared his rejection to that alternative. Well, you're a different matter, he muttered. Okay, then get! The word cracked like a whip. Denton's ugly look spelled resistance, but Ezra could be as hard as he. Okay, brother, if you reckon we aren't prepared to throw you out neck and crop, you better look nice landing there in the street. Without a word, Denton turned and stalked stiffly from the room, brushing past Miss Bart as if she wasn't there, and Sam patted Della on the shoulder reassuringly. Take it easy, kid. We'll see you're not pestered no more. He smiled awkwardly. You and Ezra are two grand old boys, Sam, exclaimed the girl warmly. If it weren't for you and Pat. If you could spare the time, Sloane, Ezra interrupted grumpily. Maybe we better trail that bush rat a little ways. You bet. Sam hasted and guiltily returned to the present. Where to, mister? Straight to Hunter, probably. They were moving through the house and into the bakery as they talked, the thought voiced by Ezra spurring their steps. They reached the outer door in time to see Denton storming off down the street, wrath and determination in his bearing. Well, how can we dog him in broad daylight? Sam puffed, his short legs working like pistons in the effort to keep up with his long-legged friend. You just hang on and foller, grunted Ezra. He can't do nothing about it if he sees us anyway. I'm finding out where he's going. Denton didn't bother to glance back, and they had no inkling at any knowledge on his part that he had been followed. Yet they were not more than 50 feet in the rear when Chess swung in at the door of the livery barn 5 minutes later. So anxious were they not to lose sight of the man, even for a minute, that they failed so much as to slow up round in the corner of the big gangway door and started straight after him. 10 feet from the street, where men were continually passing by, and the din of daily activities held unabated, 3 husky hard cases abruptly appeared in their path, materializing as it were out of the shadows. Where are you going? Said one without expression. Sam and Ezra halted, but the caution came to them too late. The toughs closed in, taking firm hold to their arms, discouraging struggle, and at least one menacing gun muzzle put in an appearance. The partners saw Denton then, smiling at them bitterly over the brawny shoulders, hemming them in. "Tie them up and toss them into the stall, boys," Chess ordered carelessly. "We'll haul 'em out to Big Medicine tonight." "Way up the mountains?" one of the roughs growled as Ezra and Sam were being secured. "What for, boss?" "Well, they're too danged interesting Vern, for one thing," was Denton's offhanded return. "We'll see what Brute has to say to that." End of chapter 13.